Who's your favorite race car driver? Well, I'll tell you who's mine. He happens to be Les Montgomery. And when you talk about the future of stock car racing, his name will come up. And a few things about Les. Well, he's highly energetic. He's courageous, and one thing's very unique about Les Montgomery happens to be black. And in the world of stock car racing, that's a rare commodity to see a black race car driver. Why is that the case, Les?
Well, it's a case of economics and exposure. Many of our men or women aren't exposed to this particular sport, not to the degree as I have been.
How have you been exposed? You started in a roundabout fashion, and let's focus on that immediately.
Well, I used my high school knowledge. Back in high school, I started as a photographer and got closer and closer to the racing action that way as a photographer. And as I went to college, I made connections with newspapers and sports departments around this area, and was able to get credentials and get the exposure and get very close to the real action of racing.
Of course, you were born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, and being close to the action at Daytona Beach, what did your friends in the neighborhood think about your love for the sport of racing?
Well, I don't think many of them really knew my love for racing. They knew I was a car enthusiast because I was always sitting around putting model cars together. I had a group of friends that also got together and put together slot cars, and we raced competitively that way. And it was just a gradual thing that just generated into what I'm into now.
So it actually started as a hobby or with the model cars, fantasizing, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And from that fantasizing, we would build our cars to resemble the Richard Petty's and the Bobby Allison, Donnie Allison at that time, Cale Yarborough driving the Wood Brothers car. That was one of my favorites. And it just escalated from a love of I guess, a boyhood type love growing into a manhood type hobby and dream right now.
Well, how did you come to the point in terms of really deciding that you wanted to be involved in the sport? Now, of course, we know you started as a journalist, a photojournalist, by actually going around to the tracks and taking pictures. But did you realize then that you really wanted to do more and eventually land in the seat of a car and drive a car?
Well, landing in the seat of a car was my ultimate dream. I just wanted to be a part of it. I just loved the sounds of racing. I loved the smell of rubber burning, the
power
smell
of all that
horsepower. Yeah, all that had to do with it. And it was just a thing of just wanting to be close to it and be a part of it. And it just generated into a driver type situation, because it seemed like the driver is the lead character in a team. So I've taken on that suit and trying to carry on.
Well, when you talk about and think about the evolution of your participation as an actual driver, how does it compare to many of the competitors who you line up against and race on a normal basis? Did they enter the sport in a roundabout fashion, or are they born into the sport? How does that work?
I don't know. I think a lot of competitors are raised in the sport. You know, they're racing is a family-oriented sport, and dads start racing and they bring their sons and daughters in it, and it just grows that way. Well, most of the competitors that I race against, you know, they've been in it for years. You know, it's been a family thing for years.
Now, there are certainly several people who you had to confide in about your love for the sport and your ambition to actually become a race car driver. What did they say, and how did they respond to you?
Mostly negative, because it's not a very good sport that blacks have been accepted in, or have they been very successful in. They felt like I was spinning my wheels and that kind of thing. But you know, there's got to be a pioneer, I guess, you know, in any particular sport that's not generating your kind of people in. I mean, I love the sport, and I feel like it's my sport also. So you know, I feel like the negatives are very few now. I mean, the positive outweigh the negatives double.
So, quite frankly, the main reason why blacks have not been involved, or other minorities in the sport of racing, is purely economics.
It's purely economics, and then it's not a racial thing. I don't think. You know, it may be racial in a more larger sense, but not
Socioeconomic. That's what
yeah,
it simply
yeah.
is.
And I feel like NASCAR has to take a lead in the situation. They've got to, just like they went out and got major major auto companies involved in the aspect. You know, they've got to do that in the various other communities also.
Well, in terms of other blacks involved in the sport, there's a handful.
Yeah, yeah.
At best.
Wendell Scott was the first on the fringe of successful.
Well, when you talk about historically racing and blacks in racing, that's the first and only name that comes to mind. And you've had a very close relationship with Wendell Scott.
Yes, I really love what he's done for us in racing. I've sat with him and tried to build something, a memorial in his honor through a scholarship fund, which I did for about 5 years, which was, you know, it wasn't successful because it just wasn't enough interest there to develop.
Was he given a raw deal from the power structure, or was he simply one of several drivers who make the attempt to go big time and simply don't have the major sponsorship?
That was it. He had the talent. That was no question about it.
But how many guys are there out there like that? That they really truly have the talent and the desire, but they just lack corporate sponsorship?
It's probably hundreds. You know, they just have to have an opportunity. They've got to get the money together. They've got to get the support base behind them to succeed. You know, when I was running the scholarship fund or the Wendell Scott Foundation, I got several letters from individuals who desired, who were saying, I want to be a race car driver. I want to follow Wendell Scott's, follow his lead and be what he was and take up the torch where he left. But, you know, when I wrote them back, I tried to tell them that they need to get a support base behind them. They need to get the blessings of their mom and dad and their best friends and stuff to get out there and to help them with this racing, because it's not easy for one person.
And it's certainly not like football, baseball, the traditional ball sports. If you have the talent, they'll find you. You must have talent and the ability to secure corporate sponsorship to survive in racing.
Right, you do. You've got to have some charisma, which I hope I have. You've got to have some appeal. Sponsors are not going to waste money on somebody who's going to bring their product down. They're interested in people who can sell, you know, just like IBM or somebody like that who might go to a college to get a top-notch graduate who's made the dean's list and stuff like that. They want them in there to sell their product because they will sell, and that's been proven.
Well, now let's talk about the process. How do you attract sponsorship? Of course, you made your debut at the Lanier Racetrack near Atlanta, Georgia. Yes. And as a matter of fact, we've got it on screen now. And how did it feel, you suiting up for that first time in your driver's outfit?
It was remembering that day, I worked so hard, I and my crew worked so hard getting the car prepared to this day. I was beat. I could hardly drive the race car, but once I got in there and the adrenaline started pumping and I started looking down towards that first turn at the start of the race, all the weariness went away and I was ready to go.
In terms of beginning your career, is it a must that you start on a short track or a dirt track and build up to the larger tracks and the larger circuit?
Yes, I feel like you build more respect that way. You build more of a following because people tend to don't like to see you just step into a high realm of
New kid on the block.
Yeah, new kid on the block. They tend to receive you better if you crawl a little bit before you walk.
Well, now in terms of your car, the cost, how do you defray expenses? Do you beat the pavement yourself, Les?
Yes, I kill the pavement. I wear it out. I mean, I work 6 and 7 day weeks. I don't work 5-day weeks.
Now here's footage of your race. How was the competition level?
Well, it's very stiff. I mean, I was working that wheel. I was fighting it, and those guys were very competitive. I was sweating like a bull, you know, and just trying to hang on because being in a very new environment, I was just awed by it, and it was just hanging on. And I was thank the Lord after the race for bringing me through.
In case you're joining us late this morning, we've got a rare commodity with us today, Les Montgomery. And Les is a race car driver. And of course, he'll be in town in the next couple of weeks for the Firecracker 400. And you'll probably be doing several other things. And we're going to take a quick time out, and we'll come back and talk about the variety of functions. You've got to be diversified to survive in this industry. You've got to know about cars. You've got to know about driving. You've got to know about...
to roll with the punches.
That's right. And you have certainly done that. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about your variety of roles and how it really plays into the big picture for you. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.